guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Connector. I am your connector, Arielle Leavitt, and I'm here to connect you to people that are trailblazers in their industry, that want to connect with you, that want to help you succeed in your business, and kind of like mentor a little bit, like give you some tips and tricks and trades and all the things, but also just want to help grow a community and connect and allow for others to share the knowledge. So I have Dee Keller here with me today.
Hello, everybody.
I am so excited. This is just like fantastic. So now I can like turn to you and look at you because we are in this studio, the new studio at Pod Populi.
Cozy as heck.
I know, it's so cozy. I was just saying it's like our living room.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, maybe not exactly my living room. It's a little lighter in my living room.
That's true. You have light colors in your living room. And I think what I like about this room is that there is a sense of comfort, right? Yeah. And when we're in business, often enough, we want to get in the same space. We want to get like really comfortable with ourselves. So we're not putting up stoicism around everything else, right? Around what needs to be done. We're just comfortable. We're being ourselves. We're watching business flow from that perspective.
That's actually so true because you think about that, like the people that you connect with the most are the people that you're most comfortable with, or like that you do the most business with, that are like really real, true, honest people, or you do the best business with.
Yeah. And think about this like in a much larger scale. So just for the own self, like the personal being that we are, we're a lot more comfortable when we're in our own space, when we can just let loose, when we can be naked, let's say, right? There's like a way in which we're just like free to be all the things we are. And that's sort of the perspective I like to push in business because we need to be free in order to be truly within our own gifts, truly expressing our own gifts and recognizing where our strengths are and our faults are.
Yeah, so true. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I have to tell everybody because everyone's like, wait, who's Dee?
Who's Dee?
Who is Dee?
Who is Dee? Good question. Ooh. So I'm a strategist. I'm an executive coach. I hold many different positions in which I move along the trajectory of a business owner. So I am a functionality person, an efficiency person. I follow the ways in which somebody does best and therefore the ways in which their business does best. So I use strategy as a frame, business as a frame to maneuver somebody's best life, best self, best movement.
Yeah. And I can say like, I have gotten to use your skill set, your techniques. I don't know. Yeah.
Like we've worked together for a while now.
Yeah.
Almost over a year, something like that.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because it's like you really, you help people. And I can really vouch for this is that like you help people like in different areas of their life. Like let's say it starts with business. Whoa, this mic just got a little close to me. Let's say it just starts with business, but then it's also like how you do one thing is how you do everything, which is so like, people say that all the time. But it doesn't like really hit you until like I don't know. Like it didn't hit me until like we started working. I was like, wait, I'm literally doing that in my business and I'm doing that in my personal life.
Yeah. And patterns are crazy like that, right? They just have a way of engaging the person, the key person of the business. So how you do business is how you're going to do your personal life. How you engage with your relationships in business is how you're going to engage with your relationships at home. And so it doesn't really matter what frame you look at it. It does help, though, that there is like a strategic perspective to look at business and then utilizing all that to clear out your life, right? Or clear out whoever's life. But often enough, people talk about this idea that's how you do one thing is how you do everything. And it's a very like cliche, fun thing to say, like easy, right?
It's a trending phase.
Yeah, it's kind of like boundaries or like, it's like trending words. But when you get to the gist of it, there's a lot of embodiment that's absolutely vital to be able to see your life as one is the same as the other. So when you can see yourself in true honesty, radical honesty, who you are and how you operate within any one of those spaces, it makes maneuvering in both really easy. And many, right? So like I like to look at it through the lens of 3 tiers. There's self, there's others, which is anyone outside of the self. And then the third one is world. So how you engage with the world, how you engage your gifts with the world. You know this well. We talk about this all the time.
No, like every time you talk, I'm like, as you're talking about like, oh my gosh, yes. Tell me again. Because it takes like,
It takes a long while because we're building neural pathways. We're building brand new neural pathways. I literally just said this to my daughter the other day, but she was upset about something. I don't know. She's 6, so she gets upset sometimes when she doesn't get her way. And I was trying to explain to her this technique on how we have many different slides and our brain chooses one slide. And it's possible and completely plausible to make a new slide. But building that new slide, it takes a little like easing. You got to like mold it out. You got to go down it a couple times. You got to make it true. And that's how embodiment happens, when you start to really bring it into your heart, yourself, your body, not just your mind and like, yeah, same patterns, I can do it all the same. But the way in which you go through self, others, and then world, it forces you to go through a process in which you're seeing the pattern in each realm. And once you do that, you start to clear out the obstructions that are in your way. It's a lot simpler like that.
It's fascinating. So I love that you talked to her about this.
Yeah, I talk to all my kids about this.
Yeah.
It's so fun because, I mean, the gift of understanding that they can do this in their personal life, just the same as I do this with business owners, is, I mean, it's immeasurable. It's huge, right? So giving that to them is something I prioritize, actually, just like being able to easily navigate tools and tool sets. I mean, the reason originally I started the company, I called it Quipped, because it's to be equipped with tools, like to have all the tool sets that you already have. They're all within you. But just being able to maneuver them, access them into a box that's like easily pulled out. Like, hey, this here, hey, this here, hey, this here.
So I'm equipped with all my tools.
Exactly. Exactly. Equipped with all my tools.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good time. It's a fun time because I'm really passionate about patterns in general. I think that they speak volumes when language sometimes falls short and when behavior almost always falls short. Patterns speak volumes. And it's really easy to access the obstructions there. Not as easy to solve them, but much easier to access them, and therefore awareness brings change.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting to me. There's like so many. I just had like lunch before. And I'm like, great, guys. Sorry.
Nah, humanists. All here.
We're all here.
We're all here in our laid out naked selves. Well, I think what's like curious.
What do you think what's curious?
What's curious is that we were just before talking about villains, and I want to hear where your head's been around it. Because I asked a question to Arielle a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Yeah. I asked you the question, if you were to be a villain, what would you choose and why?
So I've actually used this
prompt here.
Yeah. I was going to say table topic because I've used it as a table topic.
Love it.
Like I've been at dinner parties now. I've used it
fantastic.
At like networking things. Like it gets people thinking, and it's deep, and it's just interesting to hear what people have to say.
Mm-hmm. Why is it interesting to you?
I think it says a lot about like what it's being very vulnerable. It gets people to open up in a space that they, one person couldn't really open up. Could not get into it. The other person shared her character, and then I said like, so why? And she wanted confidence. She's like, I love how confident that villain is.
Wow.
And she's like, I just want to be confident like that villain. And I was like, that's amazing.
I love that.
And so, and then seeing what everybody has to, share about their villain. And it's
a good icebreaker.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because most people think superhero, right?
Or myself included. When I was first prompted with this question, I was so uncomfortable with it. Just like, I am not the villain in any story. And it's a very uncomfortable space to be in. But just the recognition that we are the villain at some points in other people's story, that's number one. Just like being comfortable with that. That is true and cannot be avoided. And often enough, when you steadfast in what you really believe in, if you're strong enough, brave enough, courageous enough, you're going to be a villain in somebody else's story.
Which is so fun. It's so fascinating, whatever, to think about, because it really is like you don't want to put yourself there, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to think like you're the villain in somebody else's story.
Yeah.
But it's the truth.
It's the truth. And then expanded beyond that, villains have something that they're bold, brave, courageous enough to stand alone in, whatever it is, right? And so that's a skill set. I'm like, I want that, right? I always want that. I always want my clients, my mentees, always want people to have that, because audacious movement is true. It's true in like a capital T form.
So I love what you said about like bringing the villains to what we need to do every day, because you said, I don't want to like,
That's
but
okay,
just
go
like,
ahead.
like stepping into that power, like, because super, or good guys, the good guys or whatever are, you said like apologetic, or what's the, I don't want to take, I don't want to.
Yeah. Well, let's expand on it. So what I was saying when I first we were first talking about this prompt was that people who are in motion of good often enough are finding that like compassionate route. They're more.
That's what it was. Sorry. Yeah.
It's not like that they are compromising, but goodness is a big term, and often it can be molded to look at from one perspective. Evil or villain requires abruptness. It requires boldness. It requires audacity, and sometimes it's not kind, right? But what else is there is steadfastness. So I'll just talk. My answer was Thanos. Thanos is like in Marvel, he's like the biggest evil.
How do I not know Thanos?
Come on, Arielle.
This is really embarrassing because I love Marvel.
Yeah.
Marvel. I love Marvel. It's like Carvel.
Marvel. So I'm a big superhero person.
Yeah.
I love that whole.
But I only know the superheroes, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So Marvel was in the whole last like Avengers scheme of things. He was the big villain they were fighting, but his whole mission was for a better cause. So if you look at like the very end of Endgame, that last movie, there's this position in which he's talking about a better world, and everyone has to die in terms of a better world. Now, of course, I don't actually share that perspective, but there is something to be said about the collective good. And how we get there and what his motives were to do that. And they were pretty bad, right? But there is sometimes something that we have to stand behind so firmly, and that skill set all the way trickled down can be neither good or bad. It just is a way in which you stay steadfast in what your mission is. And you're willing to stand courageously alone sometimes just the same as you are with others.
So interesting. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It does give you really like a lot of strength. Like when you said, why
don't you share what your answer was?
Okay. My villain was Poison Ivy from Batman. She's just so like, and
she
Uma
looks
Thurman.
like you too.
Yeah, and Uma Thurman did like such a good. It's Uma Thurman. That's why I said it twice because I was like, yeah, that's her name. Yep. Okay. Confirmed. Yep. Okay. Done. Anyway, so I picked her, and she does such a good job because she is like strong, confident, sexy, not too masculine. Like she's in her feminine.
Yeah.
And but she knows how to like.
She owns that power.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely owned.
I mean, and that's like feminine and masculine. What would you even say that is? Because like she's clearly very feminine, but she's standing in her power. So does that make her masculine or?
I mean, there is power to femininity.
Yeah.
There's huge power to femininity.
But I think society, how we look at it these days, like if you're too strong or if you're too confident or you're too this, you're too masculine.
Yeah, I think that's a misunderstanding of the energies. So the energies are a little bit more, they're not quite like base layered, right? So masculine energy is a little bit more accomplished based. It's a little bit more like to-do oriented, execution focused, versus feminine energy is a little bit more intuitive and creative and centered.
I mean, she kind of says like what she wants or she gets what she wants.
So I would say she sounds like she's in high feminine power, which isn't to say that all of us are to have both. We're all to have masculine and feminine energies within us, right? A healthy balance. So what I hear you saying, though, is that you are attracted to the feminine power that is portrayed by Poison Ivy there.
Yeah. I think she like is a rock star.
Totally.
And it's, I guess, like stepping into that total feminine power of like, that confidence, right?
Yeah.
And I was just talking about that, the confidence that the other person thought with their character too.
I think what's curious about this entire conversation is that often enough people look out to do like start business without really working through their own obstructions first, which is good and fine. Grit is how you get most of the way through, right? And as someone like as a business owner myself, I did the same. I started with grit, and I started with survival, and I started with like, this is exciting. Let me go and do it and see ya. And it was a blast. It really was, until I got caught up in like my own obstructions, right? And my obstructions, they're just the same as everybody else's when they start a business. But when we don't quite heal those obstructions, they start to get in the way, and they start to impede business, not to mention life. But of course they impede business, right? So what I started doing was recognizing the ways in which healing is done. And there's two very distinct types of healing. There's a very bodily oriented healing, which needs therapeutic work, which needs processing, which needs friendships, which needs love and safety. This is a very bodily healing aspect. And then there's a version of healing that is future oriented, which is the ability to not define yourself by your past, but to define yourself by your future. So you're thinking instead, who do I want to be? Okay, do I need to go back into my past to sort anything through? Okay, I'm going to do that, pick up what I need, and go forward. And this is a much more focused aiming experience. So these two types of healing is something that I personally didn't see much of when I started business, and what I aim to gap. Because often enough, we have an experience in which business owners have this external self, but their internal self doesn't match up. So there's a very distinct slope that they have to like conjure out of themselves to come and be. And instead, we aim to mature the internal self to the external self so that we are being limitless. We are beyond limitless. We can do anything and everything we dream of. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just love how you phrase things. Like, it's like, I just like, well, that's why I want to have you on the podcast, because I'm like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, and tell me more. Yeah. Tell me more. Okay. More. And then my head starts going and I'm like, is that how I do something? Okay. Am I processing that way? Yeah.
What is coming up for you?
It's just fun that you just get me thinking about my, like, my life, past, present, right? All this stuff that like, where do you pull from?
Mm-hmm. We so often pull from our past when instead we want to be pulling from our future self. It knocks out the whole motivation that's necessary, because it's like, how do you get motivation? Read affirmations, and like, no harm to that. I think it's so good, really. Like, affirmations are what help you get here. But also, if you're thinking about your future self, you don't need to look back.
Yeah.
You're consistently thinking about, who do you want to be, and how do you measure up to be that person? And what do they gain as a result? What are what's the cause and effect of you being your best today?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you being your best today is definitely going to push you forward.
It's going to push you way forward, right?
But it's amazing, like, even if you get through one layer of stuff.
Yeah.
I wanted to say a different word. One layer of all the emotions. It's so fascinating that the other layers pull up, right? Mm-hmm. Because like, humans are amazing. And like, we talk about this in your podcast too. Yeah. Well, we didn't talk about this in your podcast. You have a podcast.
I have a podcast in which we talk about it.
Yes. And how many there's so many layers to humans in different ways. And as we're talking about like, past trauma, past whatever, it's amazing how it can be in just such short, oh my gosh, let me start that all again. In such short, oh my gosh, why can't I say this?
Words are weird today. I had a lot of people have trouble with words today.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I could not say like a sentence earlier today. Okay. Such short term like time, like it could be like through 15 or whatever, those years of your life. And a lot could have happened to you. It's very, strong development years, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then you could spend literally the rest of your life working through that trauma.
Trying to undo it, right?
Like, isn't this
so wild? And the wild thing about it is that the traumatic experiences, they're not that surprising. Most of us have trauma. But the way in which behavior showcases itself due to that trauma is far beyond the very obvious routes that people will be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, trauma, right? But like, they're nuanced. They're how you delegate. It's how you maneuver with your employees. It's how you lead yourself when you're supposed to be leading yourself. It's how You think about efficiency. It's how you ask for money. It's everywhere.
It's so true. And it's fascinating because like I grew up in you could literally call it like Stepford. What is it? Like Stepford Wives, not Stepford Wives. Yeah. That, like just very loving, great households. Like and I still have my stuff. Like,
yeah.
Isn't it crazy?
It's not going to evade you.
Yeah.
Right? We all have our stuff, which is sort of the way I started the business, because I didn't want to create a scenario in which I watched a lot of people around me do it. They either did it in a very avoidant way, in which they didn't have a life and they weren't happy or fulfilled. And most people take on this pattern where they're okay enough, they're working enough, they have a family enough, it's fine, but they're not happy, they're not fulfilled, they're not creating impact in the world that they feel really good about. They're not excited every day, and they're definitely not trying to feel good. That's one piece, right? And then the other side of it are people who are just simply not as aware, so trying to move in motion of feeling good, but not necessarily successful in it, and therefore not making money in it. And what I tried to do is bridge the two, in which you can heal yourself without crumbling. You can heal all the ways in which this shows up in your life without collapsing, that it still allows you to create and engage in the kind of success you want. So you get to have that family, you get to have all those experiences, you get to be in love, you get to have all the friendships or communes or whatever it is that your heart desires, while also having this very enjoyable experience in life that is successful. So success that's sustainable is one that you're going to want to, like, the definition of sustainable just means you can upkeep it. You can literally be behind it and be like, yeah, go, right? But if we're consistently in a position in which we're asking ourselves to be giving of ourselves over and over again without receiving, it's not sustainable. And then something breaks. Yeah. Whether it's the job, you get burnout, or it's your own business, you close it down, or you fail. Or you don't have the love life you want, or you don't have the family life you want. And there's this constant ways in which that narrative used to play out in my life, and where I didn't get what I wanted at the end. I'm like, how is this working? How is this making sense? I'm doing everything. How is it making sense that I'm not at the end, like, also getting the pot of gold, right? And that's how I started Quipped Method, because I didn't see enough of that in the industry, and I started finding a lot of research in which people were trying to meld the two and have successfully done it since.
Yeah, I think a lot of us look for, like, we're supposed to do these milestones, right? You're supposed to go to college, go to high school, whatever. You go through school.
Yeah.
Then you get out of school, then you are supposed to start working, and then you're supposed to start a family, and then you're supposed to have a family. And
you're supposed to being the key word.
Right? Like, and then when we don't do that, there's like shame. You posted something actually did you post this? Maybe I posted, but I thought of you.
Could be. I don't know. What was it? That's great. I love that I'm in your head like that. That's so fun.
But it's like what, society pushes on you, and then what is really like important. And society is like, feels like getting good grades and having a job and all those things are like, you made it in life. There's your gold star. Yeah. And instead of like actually like the things that really matter is like happiness and finding your purpose and pursuing that and sharing that with the world. And
what a shame to spend that many years not engaging with the things that are most important in humanhood. This isn't adulthood versus like child. Like, this is just humanhood. As humans, like, our main objective is to enjoy this process and to make a better world. That's literally when you shake out the bag, that's what you get. And how many of us are not attached to that overall mission. Yeah. So working with business owners is a means to get them thinking about that overarching mission. What is it for you? Why are you in this to begin with, right? Like, how do we connect you back to a life that feels good here? Otherwise, like, go work for someone else. This is hard. Like, this is not easy.
Yeah.
Go get a paycheck. And I can't tell you the countless times I said that to myself when I first started. Like, Dee, just go get a paycheck somewhere. Like, just go do it. But of course, like, I had a big mission, and I still have a big mission. And so I could not ignore that.
It's really not an
and
option.
I say this often, that truth cannot be negotiated with. And I mean that in a very personal way. My truth, your truth, it cannot be negotiated with. And if you try to negotiate with it, it'll come back to bite you.
You lose.
Yeah.
Like you literally lose.
You lose. You'll have to do it again. You'll get the test over and over again.
Game over. Start the whole video game again.
Again and again and again until you win. Until you upscale that pattern.
And level up.
Yeah. Until you level up. What did you say to me a few days ago? You were like, I feel like I'm in a new level of
I literally feel like I hit like level 2 or whatever level I'm probably. Yeah. Like a little Mario.
Yeah.
You know, or when you go through the like little tunnel thing. Yeah. That's what you're talking about. Like,
yeah, like you leveled up.
Yeah. And it feels so good. And it's like, I finally got off that rat race or off that.
What feels different?
Like I can just take on more things.
Capacity's grown.
And I like almost also like taking off these other glasses. And I just like, oh, I was seeing the world like that. I was seeing the situations like that. And it's like, yeah, I'm not available for that anymore. Like, why do I want to continue that hamster wheel and that like same old pattern when I can go off the hamster wheel and up to this next level or whatever it is and experience like a whole new experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is so much fun in this world that we get to like live in, right? We have one life or many lives, or however you want to look at it.
One of this anyway.
One of this life, these lives, this life.
One way or another. You got one. You got one here. You got one try around at this soul's life, right?
There we go. That's
And the truth is that like the patterns are going to show up over and over again until you heal them, until you maneuver them, you know, and it's really wild to see what happens when people decide, like you did, to leave a rat race of some kind within their own head. They leave it and they choose something else. It's amazing to see what you actually prioritize in those spaces, because you're like, oh no, I've been giving way too much power to something I don't actually care about. Yeah. And then we look at all the time spent. We look at all the heart spent. We look at all the mind spent, and then all the relationships spent. And you're like, oh, 1 second. Let me reorganize the hell out of everything. Or that's how my mind works. Yeah, I'm like, okay, I got to restructure, renegotiate.
You love systems.
I love systems and structure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm a strategist. It has to be there. So like, yes, I like to work in the healing aspects of the emotions, but only as a means to strategize better for your life, which is the way I engage with emotions, because I think otherwise it can be really tricky, and you can get to a place, I'll just talk to myself, I could get to a place of collapse if I'm only in the hyper feminine experience of emotion. And so that femininity for me can be a little toxic. Getting to that middle balance ground of like, okay, here's the emotion. I can see, hear, acknowledge the emotion. I still work on feeling the emotion. And now I maneuver into next steps. What do I do with that? How do I change that? Where is the behavior that's attached to it? And where is it impeding my life that I need to reorganize or restructure?
It's interesting. The work that we've done together, you, like I've done a lot of self-growth, a lot of work, moved through a lot of stuff. I'm like, all right, I feel good. Like I'm in a good space to really get like my systems and procedures down and all this other stuff. Right. And you kept saying to me, you're like, but you're not like in it. Mm-hmm. You get it like mentally, but you're not in it. Mm-hmm. Like your body's not in it. Like
I think I frustrated you for a minute there, because I was saying that to you a lot, and you were like, could you not? And
I shut up about this.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell it to us. Tell us how you really feel.
No, but it just like, and then it wasn't until we did this mastermind that I've been a part of this mastermind with you.
Yeah.
And when we started doing this, like, I don't know, maybe it's the group, maybe it's like because we're all in the similar area. I don't know what it is. Or it's just this time now, because like private one-on-one, I loved it. And then I also love this group. So it's like both.
Well, like really, realistically, what we're working on here in this group is your ability to be in it. Right? Yeah. So on one-on-one, we could talk about it, whatever. It's fine. You know, we can get through everything we need to get through. But in a group setting, you can't just be like on the outside. This doesn't work. You have to be in it.
Yeah.
You have to be like really pull up a chair, get comfy, you know, and that's a tricky mirror. It's tricky mirror.
Oh my gosh. Like I've done some other group masterminds, and I guess like I've never I don't know. Obviously you bump up against your own stuff in different times, different ways, different, all the other things. But like this time around, holy moly.
And what's funny and what was really surprising to me is that I structured this mastermind in a way that it is less proximity to me and more around the group's center and less meeting times, less touch points. What I was doing by that structuring was making it a very clear mirror, a very clear self-leading experience, self-led leaders that are coming and saying what they really need and only touching in on the points that they really need so that it can be vibrated throughout in a very focused manner. And surprising to me because I just wanted to see how that played out. And it's, I mean, the feedback has been wild. It's really been wild. It's like, it's had me emotional. I'm just like awed by it because it can have that kind of transcendence effect when you really hold up a mirror and you push somebody to watch for their own self-led leadership. That is the best way to create real change. It's not by me telling you what to do or using my techniques. It's by using your techniques. It's by following your solution. It's by making this business work best for you, not for me, right? So if I have to make my business work best for me, but you got to make your business work best for you. And if we think about it in any other measure, it falls short eventually because it's somebody else's.
Yeah. It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
I was trying to describe you to some other people and I was like, she shakes up your whole world. Like, I don't even know how, but I thought I was just going to shake up my business. Yeah. You've shaken up my whole world in such an amazing, amazing way, in such a positive way.
Oh, awesome.
But it's I love how it just crosses in all the things. And
it can't be untouched. So because my background started in economics and finance. So I worked in real estate, in luxury real estate in New York for many years. And working as a CFO there's a way in which I'm a numbers person. I like for what goes in to be equaled out, right? There's a very structured process to that. And right. I love that you laugh at it. But really I had a good friend once tell me, she's like, I'm just going to get you 2 puppies and they're going to call it structure and process. Yeah. Great, I'll just have 2 puppies that have those names. But point being in that, I really like the way things are simplified all the way down. And I think simplification is the way actual change is made. Because if we make it too complex for ourselves, number 1, but for anyone else, number 2, definitely for the world, number 3, we don't have a way of actually saying what we mean, and we're often misunderstood.
Yeah.
Something's happening for you.
I need to readjust.
Okay.
Yeah, no, because I just want to get comfier with this conversation. Yeah. But it's okay, continue on because I want to add,
So what I was saying is that I really like the way things are simplified all the way down because they're best understood there. So if you think about factors, math, in 2nd grade or 7th grade, whenever it is that you're doing that, there's a big graph there, but there's you're really making a tree and you're taking a large complex formula and boiling it all the way down to 2 times 2. And that's how you find the answer because it's simplest. It's most understood. So when I'm looking at a pattern in a business owner, it's only a quarter of it if I'm only looking at it in the business. If I can't bring it to home life and if I can't bring it to friendships and if I can't bring it to patterns in business, money business, then it's just right here and you don't get the gist of everything. But if we really want change in this one section, we've got to be able to pull up the rock everywhere. We got to hold it, lift it, throw it.
Yeah. Do you think we're too do you think we I mean, clearly, obviously you want to go back to simple policies and procedures or all the things, but I guess we just do you think, oh gosh, I have so many.
This is a good question. Get it out.
I know. It's okay. Because I was just kind of, the book, Women Are for Venus, Men Are for Mars, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So men keep things simple. Men are just just tell me what it is. Tell me to go left, right, straight, center. Great. Fantastic. I'm there. Mm-hmm. Women, we like to complicate things. We like to put more emotion into it. No, well, actually, there's going to be a tree on the way to your destination.
And when you see it, make a little U-turn.
And then you'll see a waterfall, right? And then as you're doing that, you're going to feel this fresh air on your skin. It's going to be delightful, right? So we have a very different way of approaching it. And as you're talking, I'm like, so wait, we all just need to simplify this down?
Well,
or is this like in business, or is this in our life? Is this like, how are we?
I'm gonna answer this question, but I get a little broad here with me, okay? So get like really zoom out, like all the way to space.
Okay, so am I going too deep into this?
No. We're gonna talk about it on deep, and then we'll get closer in. I mean,
simple, Arielle, simple.
Yeah. Well, the only way to really expand on this conversation is if we can see it truly for all its parts.
Okay.
So if we're looking
big,
so if we're looking at it on a very broad perspective, is that men and women are portrayed in very stereotypical lenses. On the energetic level is something a little different. It's a more masculine approach versus a more feminine approach. Like I said, we all have a good measure within us. And so sometimes we want to bring the other up to match up to make it like a little bit more balanced, a little bit more even. That said, there is a overcomplication that is happening in the world right now. It's not really feminine or masculine. It's like there's too much data and there's not enough concisement. There's not enough filtration of like, okay, but what is true for you? What is your mission? Right? Here is all this information, but is any of that relevant to you? And what do you want to do about it? So for instance, if we get really small now, it's the ability to take something that's complex, because business is complex and humanhood is complex and very nuanced, and human behavior is its own version of chaos, right? But if we want to create simplification, we create movement on that simplification. If it's too complex, it's too complex to be understood, and I can't barely explain it to you, let alone do anything about it. So if we are in motion of movement, then we want to simplify things. If we are in motion of being understood by somebody else so that they can take what we're saying and apply it, or understand us in terms of a relationship, or really anything there's a simplification. If we look at businesses and we look at employees, there's a very specific role and responsibility that needs to be had in order for it not to be complex, in order for it to be like very clearly understood. This is your role. This is your responsibility. These are all the complex pieces that can sit within it. But here is the container. And the container allows us to know how to engage, how to maneuver ourselves in comparison to someone else. Make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that there are ways in which we overcomplicate things, and potentially femininity can do that more than masculine energy.
Yeah.
But on a larger scale of things, we've become very good at bringing in all these agendas without enough critical thought that's saying, okay, how do we plug these two together in my life? And on the same scale, we look at this on business, like, yes, there's many things that we can do, but what actually do I want to do? And why am I doing that? What's the point in it for me? Do I want this? Do I want that? Right? And creating movements and actions that are based on that overarching thought allow us to move in much more flow. And flow is the epitome of where we want to be. Yeah.
And when we're in flow, everything flows.
Yeah, everything flows. It's a lot easier. But you do need a container to know how to flow in. You need a container. You need some kind of space in which, like, okay, I can flow here. I can flow here, right? And when we have too many complexities, we don't have the simplicity of what movement needs to be made.
Yeah, it's so fascinating.
Yeah, human behavior, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get stuck, and then we become like analysis paralysis.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that happens. So many things happen. Yeah, analysis by paralysis, though, is a big one, because, you know, we're just stuck with so many options. Yeah. The complexities are huge there. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back.
Okay.
And I love our conversation. I love where we go with things, because like we start with one area, then we dive into another area. Yeah. And it's all about, I don't know, just human being, how we are as human beings. Mm-hmm. So, which leads me into your podcast, because fundamentally human.
Fundamentally human is Such a fun podcast.
Yeah.
Because we really are doing that. We showcase how we lead ourselves. So I do the podcast with my sister, who is a psychotherapist, and I'm a strategist and a business coach. And so we have a really interesting perspective on humanhood from that space, not to mention how we do it ourselves and in our relationship. So the podcast is to sort of explore the different ways in which humanhood is on a very fundamental basis, so that we can see how to navigate that within our own lives. And in that podcast, we bring about personal examples, personal stories, personal concepts and theories, and they're all there for you to try on, for you to see how it feels on your life, and then recognize where you want to take something and where you would like to leave it, so that we can create more language, simplistic language, around the very complexities of humanhood. But at the bottom of it, we're just like fundamentally human. Like, it's just very clear. It's not that complicated, you know, but we overcomplicate things. And so the podcast is to navigate that change and navigate those complexities in a much more simple term.
Oh, I love it. It's
exciting.
Yeah.
It's for a better world, right? Because like I said, the focus of feeling good is not enough talk. It's not spoken about enough. And like, literally, it's the epitome of life.
It is interesting. I mean,
why do we get married? Why do we fall in love? Why do we start a business? It's like to have better. It's to feel good. It's to be on top of shit, you know, like.
Well, like, I think our default in our whole body is like, want to feel good, right? But then we're like, but that can't feel that good. Like,
right. We immediately put restrictions on ourselves.
Like, no. So I have to make myself do this. I have to do this. And I have to go here. And I have to like make myself crazy, literally.
And think about all the capacities in yourself that are now limited, because we've talked about like only this place and this place and this place. And so we're just like limiting, getting so small that like the ability to get far beyond it is almost too hard. Mm-hmm. It's almost too hard. So yeah, that's what we start to do in the podcast, where we're just bringing these ways in which humanhood is actually a lot simpler. Should we break away from all the complexities?
What do you think somebody can do to just kind of like make things a little bit more simple for them?
I would say ask yourself a very simple question, and that like, what do you want?
I know, but like even when you say like, what do you want? Like, I don't know.
Well, yes.
But I'm like the little voice.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that.
I don't know.
So let's talk about like when somebody says, I don't know, it means they do know. They just have immediate resistance to it. And so we want to look at what that resistance is. So when I ask the question, what do you want? I mean, I would say to someone to take a few minutes, to sit in a quiet room, to think to themselves what they want, should they really be able to get it? What their heart desires, should they really be able to get it? And I mean, like, really, truly dream as though you're receiving it. When we are in the motion of thinking that we're receiving what we're getting, we're not limiting ourselves, because it's plausible and able to come into fruition. And so our mind can expand beyond belief there, because it's like, wow, I can get anything I want. I'm a child in a candy store. And once you have these little things that you're too afraid to say to yourself out loud or to anybody else out loud, you can start building your life around that. So what that does is it starts to make a way in which you're seeing a future without any obstructions to it. And now once you have a future without any obstructions to it, well, we would call that your ideal. It's not plausible today, but we would call it your ideal. And then once we have your ideal, we could start to move backwards. Okay, how do we even, like, if we were to be so bold and brave and courageous and like, not today, but tomorrow, maybe, what would we do? We'd start to make like small little micro tasks, small little micro movements that would get you towards that ideal. And it's crazy to see what happens when you turn over that rock.
Yeah. So powerful. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Okay. I love our conversations. We could go on
fantastic.
Like on for hours and hours. And like we could go in another area, which we're going to be doing this again.
Yeah. I'm sure we will.
But before we go, where can everybody find you?
Ooh. You can find me on quippedmethod.com. You can find me on Instagram, Dee Keller, LinkedIn, Dee Keller, podcast, Fundamentally Human. Masterminds. There's lots of places to get connected.
All the things.
Yes.
So good. Oh my gosh. Thank you for being here
today.
Thank you for
having me. And thank you for your questions. These were good questions.
And well, my mind is like totally spinning in like a good way.
Love it.
But I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Send me your follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Let's get through them.
Well, you guys also should send your follow-up questions and like,
I'll come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us. I just enjoy being here every week with you, and I appreciate so much you listening every week. But before we go, can you like, subscribe, write a review on the podcast, because it really helps. I appreciate it so much. And I just appreciate
Connector.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's such a great show and such a great platform that you provide here, just bringing people together and allowing them to speak their zone of geniuses so that all of them can come together and help each other and learn from each other. Really, really amazing work.
I really want people to help. Like, we're gonna have like the encore, whatever, bloopers.
Yeah.
Or, I don't even know. Like, what.
We're back.
I really enjoy seeing people work together as a community. Mm-hmm. And maybe it call me old school, maybe call me like back in like the caveman days in a way or whatever, right? But like, I was at a coffee meeting this morning, and I hear the women, it was a women's coffee meeting, and I hear the women starting to talk with each other like, oh, I do this. Let me collab with you on that. Let's start an event here. Can I do this? Have this event at your place? Like, amazing. I think this would be great. And then we could drive some business to your office, and then we could bring, I know people, so then they could, mm-hmm. And I was like, gosh, I love this, because like, this is what we need to do to support each other and help each other and constantly, give each other like the good vibes, right? Yeah. Like,
no, I'm going to expand on this for a minute because it's so important.
Oh boy.
But
we might have to put this in like part 2.
Maybe. But I just have to say that, like, talking about the podcast, Fundamentally Human podcast, one of the reasons we started it was because I'm a pretty like self-oriented, self-led person. And I teach from that space. I mentor from that space. I coach from that space. I strategize from that space, all of it, in which you're being your best self so that everything around you can also be its best self. Micah, my sister, who I do the podcast with, is brilliant and shows up from a space of social, emotional beings, in that we are socially led as fundamentals in the caveman ages, all the way back to the creation of time. Humans are social beings, and they have to rely on one another in order to survive, not to mention thrive, but definitely to survive. And so in this world that we live in today, this society, we've become too self-centered, too self-oriented, too much in a way that we are only focused on our own next step. So my perspective of this is not just only focused on the self as a means to operate the self. It's just a means to operate the collective. But the language there that's necessary to add is the social emotional being, right? So we are literally that in our DNA. We can't walk away from it. The influence of community not only envelops something called belonging, which like gives you beyond freedom, but also it allows you to have camaraderie, to not feel alone, to be among others, to be in fruition of others, and to excel yourself and excel others. It's like a win-win.
And I guess it's like what we seek out anyways. Like we seek out like people. Like we want to, you have your, I'm thinking high school, right? I'm thinking like the groups, right? You have your jocks, you have your cheerleaders, you have your artsy people, right? Yeah. You have your niche.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is how things move. Like, and I'll just talk from all my clients and all my people, there is a big focus on community and the necessity of it. Because without community, it's like everything else. It can only go in one scale. If we're just looking at the self, or we're just looking at your impact of the world, we're not quite looking at the middle ground, which is others. Mm-hmm. We have to be good at community in order to get to true versions of how you impact the world. Otherwise, it's just like you're shouting out into an open void. Yeah. But it needs to be more how it felt, which is how belonging works.
Totally. Yeah, we all want to belong.
Mm-hmm. And we all get to belong.
That's literally the whole thing.
Yeah.
You just want to be a part of a community.
So you do that brilliantly here on the connector, because you bring so many people together in that space where you are utilizing and expanding on community. It's so beautiful to watch.
Thank you.
And listen to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
my gosh, this is so much fun. Look at it. Just turn the you like turn the table on me. Yeah.
What I do best.
Yeah, you do. Here's the mirror.
Yeah. Listen, it's part of it.
So awesome. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is fantastic. I'll see you guys all next week.